In brightest day and blackest night, there has always been the Green Lantern as the perennial superhero in the DC universe, and now is no exception. Green Lantern is important today as he was, 50, 60 years ago. And he's a very important character. He's a popular character. He's personally my favorite superhero. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give him special treatment in this video. I just give him the same treatment that I would every other hero and the misconceptions surrounding them, as well as educating you on the character itself. So let's go ahead and start with those. Green Lantern, easily one of the most misunderstood heroes. I think he, along with Aquaman, can easily be in the top two when you consider, public opinion about the heroes and misconceptions throughout the years that people just based off of what they've heard or some lame episode of Super Friends, which I would never advise anyone to take as canon. So here we go. As I mentioned before, a lot of people, when they hear the Green Lantern, are under the impression that he's black. And first of all, the Green Lantern is not really the correct term, because a Green Lantern, there are thousands, literally thousands of Green Lanterns. They are a galactic peacekeeping police force, if you will, of the universe, and every sector gets their own Green Lantern to, keep the peace and, take care of the bad guys. And Sector 2418's representative for the Green Lanterns was an alien by the name of Abin Sur. And if you guys saw the movie, which I would not recommend as the best storytelling of the Green Lantern mythos, but does provide some information at the very least, he dies, crash lands on Earth, and the Power Ring seeks out Hal Jordan, the first Earthling to become the Green Lantern. And Hal Jordan is, of course, a white guy. He's a test pilot. He's overcome great fear and is a pretty awesome dude. He is especially powerful against the agents of fear and goes up against it very many times, in that his arch nemesis Sinestro uses the entity of fear and the yellow power rings to make his constructs, while Green Lantern does not rely on fear but willpower to create his green light-based constructs. Also, fun fact, Hal Jordan is the only member of the Justice League who doesn't take shit from Batman. He's the only one not afraid of him, which is kind of badass in his own sense, because everyone else is a little fearful of Batman, regardless of how powerful he is. They know what he's capable of, which I mentioned in a previous video if you want to check that one out. But a lot of people seem to be on the impression that John Stewart is the Green Lantern. He is not the Green Lantern. He's not even the second Earthling to be Green Lantern, but the third of what is now 5 Earthlings to have that mantle as Green Lantern. So Hal Jordan was the Green Lantern. Guy Gardner was instituted as his backup. And after many failures and bad things happening, John Stewart was instituted as the backup of the backup. Guy Gardner went into a coma, and eventually Hal was, after the destruction of his hometown Coast City, was very vulnerable, and Sinestro's plan worked in that the Parallax Fear entity was able to control him, have him destroy the central power battery on Oa, as well as many Green Lanterns, and become the Parallax, and eventually sacrificing himself through willpower to save the sun and reigniting it, and sacrificing himself in the process. So Hal Jordan has been dead for a long time in the comics until Geoff Johns rebirthed him just a few short years ago. So that's why John Stewart plays the prominent role as Green Lantern in many cartoons and comic books in the late 90s and the early aughts. So that's the reason for that misconception. And Kyle Rayner also became a Green Lantern after that, which was not instituted as a backup, but a different purpose entirely. And most recently, a man by the name of Simon Baz, a Lebanese American, the latest in the long instituting run of making superheroes more ethnic. So those are the Green Lanterns of Earth. But when you're talking about the Green Lantern, Who you're talking about is Hal Jordan. And another misconception that Green Lantern is always posed with is that his weakness is the color yellow, which sounds really silly. And it is really silly, but it's not true. A weakness that is really silly is of Alan Scott's, the first Green Lantern, the Golden Age Green Lantern, but is only shares similarities with the Green Lantern in his name. He is not associated with the Guardians or the Power Battery. His ring is using magic and not willpower, so that was retconned into making a better mythos and a better storyline for the DC universe. His weakness is wood, which is silly and actually true. He cannot manipulate wood, but many people seem to be under the impression that Green Lantern's weakness is the color yellow, which is absolutely not true. What this stems from is the yellow impurity in the central power battery, which used to hold Parallax. And in holding Parallax, you had the yellow impurity, which caused some of the beginner Green Lanterns, the rookie Lanterns, into having trouble with manipulating color yellow. But once they are able to overcome fear, then that is no longer a problem to them, and would not even be a problem if if yellow was a weakness of the Green Lanterns, for the Earthlings at least, because after Hal Jordan's rebirth and the destruction of Parallax and the defeat of Sinestro, Parallax was reprisoned within each of the power batteries of the 4 Earthlings, which charges the rings, which has to be charged every 24 Earth hours, which is really the only real weakness that the Green Lanterns have, is that, you know, the charge on their power, the charge on the ring only lasts 24 hours, and it has to be recharged after that. So that's really the only real weakness. He's not weak against the color yellow, and even if he would be, him being one of the Lanterns which was chosen to imprison Parallax, wouldn't have this yellow impurity anyways. So that is a very common misconception that will not fly. If you try to say that Green Lantern is one guy or another, you would be mistaken. If you're talking about the Green Lantern, you're talking about Hal Jordan, and if you're saying that his weakness is the color yellow, you will not get away with it. Green Lantern, Hal Jordan most specifically, my favorite of the Green Lanterns, and many others. Some people prefer Kyle Rayner, maybe some prefer John Stewart, not many prefer Guy Gardner, or the newcomer Simon Baz, obviously because he's new. But I love Hal Jordan as Green Lantern. I think he has some of the best storylines. He has a great mythos behind it. It's interplanetary in that it's not, you know, just limited to Earth, which most other heroes are. He has a great nemesis and villain in Sinestro, who was his mentor until Hal exposed him to using fear to ruling his planets. So eventually Sinestro instituted Parallax in the power of the yellow power battery, and since the rebirth of Hal Jordan has become, in my opinion, the greatest storyline of DC Comics, especially recently, at least after Infinite Crisis. In the Blackest Night storyline and all the leading up to it, the introduction of the Red Lanterns and the Indigo Lanterns, the Blue Lanterns, Larfleeze and the Orange Lanterns, and you got the Black Lanterns, and that fantastic storyline of Blackest Night, one of the most important to understanding the DC universe. And then you had Flashpoint in the New 52 more recently, but fantastic comic book storylines, a great character, a great mythos, and my personal favorite, Hal Jordan, beware his power, Green Lantern's light. Be sure to stay tuned next week where I go over The Flash and why he is one of the greatest heroes ever.